Good day, everyone. So we are going to continue from the second section of the class for HSC, Health, Safety and Environment. We've had the first section and now we are going straight to the second section. Remember, we stopped at PPE. PPE means personal protective equipment. These are equipment that personnel on site at workplace wear to protect his body parts from being exposed to harm, danger, or hazard. So if you work in a site where there are dust and your eyes can be exposed to sharp dust, we have the eye and face protection or the goggle. We have the head protection to protect the head. We have the aspiration protection to protect your respiratory system. We have the hand protection for the gloves. We have the boots, the safety boots for the legs. We have the coverall for body protection. You can see we have safety helmets, we have various that can protect every part of your body. You can see some images here of workers performing various work and protecting. Welders must put on their face shield to protect them from the radiation and the lightning of the welding material. Aspirator, you can see chemists must wear the hand gloves to protect them from chemical irritations. Health and safety. Health and safety is all about prevention of accidents and injuries. Just know it, and it's so simple. It's just about prevention. Like I said, health and safety is basically about making sure that workers go home safer, go home better. No company wants to have its staff, customers, visitors engage in accident. It's very dangerous. It's very bad. So health and safety ensure well-being of workers, both full-time, part-time, contract workers, self-employed, visitors. I mentioned that just now, customers. The physical environment, behavior of people, competence and safe working practice. Why is health and safety involved in physical environment? Remember we mentioned about unsafe acts and unsafe condition. We are interested in the physical environment because we want to study the unsafe conditions. Because these are hazards that lead to accidents. They are potential accidents. Behavior of people, that is unsafe acts. You get competence and workplace. See, in the oil and gas industry, people do not just get job because they know the job. They get job because they know the job and they should also know how to do the job safely. That's why safety is important. In some oil and gas companies like Total Field, you notice that safety is their second priority after ICT. Some companies you see safety first. Without safety, you cannot come into the company. So safe certification is good. It's just like being computer literate. It's very, very important. Cost of poor standard of health and safety. Look at what it costs. Accidents, injuries, fatality, diseases, and suffering. Increased absence, poor morale, and high staff turnover. Legal cost and fine. Insurance costs, loss of reputation, prohibition and closure by regulatory bodies. These are the costs of it. Health and safety, benefit of good health and safety to employees. You must know, we are not just practicing health and safety because we just want to practice it. No, there's a benefit to it. It motivates workers. When workers work in a place that is highly safe, that are safety and health conscious, they are motivated to work. They know their life is safe. Confident to work. Better health. People live longer. There are some places that people die early. They sick too early, too soon. For example, hydrogen sulfide. Any rig or any workplace that have release of hydrogen sulfide, do you know what happened? A lot of people suffer from chronic disease, respiratory problems. Imagine those working at asbestos company. Asbestos by itself is carcinogenic. See, a lot of staff will start having cancer of the lungs. So it is your job as a potential safety officer to recommend the kind of PPEs they must use or how they need to do that job. I've seen workers in Warri, they were asked to extravagance to clean a pipe, or sorry, a tank that was used to carry a very highly dangerous liquid. So they outsource the job to the locals to wash those tanks. And you see them go into those tanks, wash it for hours. And when they go back, they fall sick. Why? Because of the high level of substance they've inhaled into their bloodstream. Such job will be done on rotation and the staff must be well protected. So, lesser risk of accident is one of the benefits. Less absenteeism. Staff would show up at work every time. Benefit of good health and safety to employer now, to those that own the management of the organization. They increase productivity, increase profit, happier and better motivated workforce, less time taking off work, fewer problems with health and safety inspectors. They don't have problem. Lower insurance premium, meaning that they're not going to pay higher premium on insurance. If you want to insure a sick man, health insurance company will ask you to pay more than someone who does not have any health challenge. So if you want to insure a company that observe high level of safety and health procedures, the insurance premium will drop, because the insurance company knows that this company is not likely to be faced with some form of accident soon. So those are the benefits to both employers and employees. Let's look at the word STF, slip, trip, and fall. This is a common form of accident at workplace. Workers may slip, they may trip, and they may fall. Why are we talking about this? As a safety officer, you must learn to differentiate the three. They are not the same. Slip, a term used to describe where the surface of a footwear or sole of your foot loses grip with the floor surface. You slip when the frictional coefficient of friction is very low, and that can happen when there's liquid on the floor, oil on the floor, or this kind of shoe or the footwear we are wearing is so slippery that you slip off. And when a worker slips off or a visitor slips off, it can cause injury in any part of the body, or it depends on the health situation of the person who is sleeping. It can even lead to death. So you must know this would help you to know how to construct your floor, how to put caution mark, how to put caution sign on those areas that slip has a high potentiality of happening. It will help you as a safety officer to know. Trip, when an obstruction or even floor causes the foot or leg to catch the obstruction, making a person lose balance. Trip, you know what trip means. So you must make sure that those obstructions are cleared away, or there's a sign ahead to telling those coming that there is an obstruction here. Please be warned and be careful. It's good. Fall, where a slip or trip causes a person who was upright, walking or running, to fall to the ground or floor surface. So where there is, for example, in a construction site, so it is the job of a safety officer to use signs, to use direction, to always train workers in the morning, not to run in the construction site. This is where they must walk. These are the things that are here, to help them avoid STF. Causes of STF: wet floor, poor lighting, that is poor illumination, trailing cables and wire, uneven floors, using chairs instead of step ladders or proper foot stood, obstruction on the floor or walkway, people's behavior, e.g., running instead of walking or carrying too much load, etc. These are some of the causes, so you must learn to avoid this. Hazard and effect management process, HEMP. Hazard and effect management process. HEMP is a systemic approach for identifying hazard, addressing risk, and implementing effective control measures. Three things now. You identify hazard. You assess the risk of the hazard. Assessing risk of hazard means that you will look at the severity of the possible accident that can happen if either asset, people, environment, or reputation is exposed to the hazard. They have a contact. And risk factor is likelihood, probability of an accident happening. And that probability is measured in threefold. Is it likely? Is it most likely? Unlikely? Is it unlikely? Is it likely? Is it most likely? And the severity of the harm that can happen is rank minor, major, and catastrophic. It's unlikely that an accident can happen. It is likely that an accident will happen. It is most likely that an accident will happen. So when the accident happens, the harm might be minor, the severity might be major, or might be catastrophic. Learn this, please. So HEMP helps you to know this. HEMP now helps you to what? To implement effective control measures, because you have now been able to rate the risk of accident happening. Step of HEMP. Hazard identification. We just did HEMP now by talking. Risk assessment, risk control, implementation, monitoring, and review of what has been implemented. HEMP would ask the following question: are people, environment, or asset exposed to potential harm? Remember, identification now. What are the causes, consequences, and risk involved? That is assessment. Can the cause be eliminated? Or what controls are needed? Can the potential consequences or effects be mitigated? Or are recovery capacity suitable and sufficient? Can the potential consequence or effect be mitigated? These are the questions that HEMP would ask. So you identify if people will be exposed to it. What are the costs, the consequences, and risk involved? You've mentioned that. So let's go to the next slide. HSE risk assessment. A safety tool which ensures that business risks are identified, assessed, and control measures put in place. A technique for preventing accident and ill health. Look at what could go wrong and the way to prevent problem. A risk assessment provides the basis for enabling action to be identified and taken to eliminate hazard or to minimize their effect. Identifying hazard and assessing the risk of the hazard occurring, allowing us to be proactive and not reactive. Risk helps us to be proactive and not reactive. Risk assessment. Let me give an example of risk assessment. Just a very short one here. Workers who work under an environment with high level of sound beyond normal. Sound is measured in decibel, and if workers are exposed to work in an area where noise pollution is prominent, where noise, like you work in a place that's the grindstone or an explosion site, so workers are exposed to the noise. We want to perform risk assessment. What is the likelihood that workers who work here will be impacted negatively by the sound? measure the sound. Are they unlikely? Are they likely? Are they most likely to be impacted? They are most likely to be impacted because the sound is above normal. But if the sound is below, they are likely. If there is no sound at all, they are unlikely. Are we together now? If you work in a place where there is no sound production, and we're talking, what is the likelihood that sound will affect their hearing? We make worker begin to have problems with hearing. In a place where there is no sound being produced, it is what? Unlikely. But where there is sound, but the sound is within normal range, is likely. But when the sound is above the normal range, it is what? Most likely. You're already performing your risk assessment now. So once you know if it is likely, unlikely, or most likely, then you move to the next stage. Okay, if accident do occur because it is likely or most likely, what will be the severity of the damage? In a place where the sound is normal, the severity can be minor, depending on the hours of exposure, man hour. So you can now measure to say, to curb it. Now, we're not talking about control now. Since it is minor, major, how do we mitigate it? Then let us reduce the exposure hour. Workers who work here should not work here beyond 5 hours. Should work beyond 3 hours. You're using data now. I'm just giving you an example now. But you must drive this information with data. This is outcome, a simple risk assessment. To give you the likelihood, the severity, and the mitigation of accidents. So you are proactive. You are not reactive. Degree of harm, number of people that may be affected, and likelihood. Identify potential vulnerability. Identify hazard. Now I've talked about this. And to provide information required to make decision on whether the level of risk is tolerable, whether the risk, HSE risk can be managed to a level as low as reasonably practicable. You don't want to stop the job, but you still need to continue the job, but you do want to reduce the severity of harm on the people and the environment. Compare alternatives, particularly in the design phase. Optimize the use of scarce resources, money, people, and time. So these are part of HSE, the objective of HSE risk assessment. So let's move to the next slide. Type of HSE risk assessment. Potential loss of life, assets, production time, and injury. Potential impact on health, especially illness and disease, and environment. Potential loss of assets and reputation. So if a risk assessment is not properly performed, these are the consequences. There's potential loss of life, asset, production time, and injury. There's potential impact on health. Seeing staff who work in factories that produce asbestos, many of them being impacted with lung cancer. Some of these things are chronological effects. It's not acute. So it takes a long time for it to happen. And those who also live around cement production plants also are exposed to cancer, because some of the active ingredients used for production of cement are carcinogenous. That's why if you go to areas like Ewekoro in Ogun State, Obajana, look at the plants around those areas. You see cement dust on them. And most of the leaves, they don't grow well. Some of them, you see them are yellowish instead of being green. It means that the plant already was affected, let alone the human beings that stay around there. So procedure for risk assessment: identify, avoid, measure, assess, apply control, document, and review. So we're looking at the last slide now for this class. Hierarchy of control. Hierarchy of control here means by the time you identify that there is the risk factor is high, how do you control to avoid harm on people, on environment, reputation, and what? Assets. Elimination. Can you eliminate the hazard totally? If there is noise, how do we make sure that the noise does not exist at all so that people are not harmed? If the hazard is chemicals, how do we eliminate it? People need to work, but we don't want that chemicals. Sometimes you might not be able to eliminate because the hazard is part of the job. Can we substitute? Substitution is another. Can we isolate? Can you reduce the noise? Instead of getting a noise generator, can you substitute with a noiseless generator? Can we isolate it? Can we cover it? Can we enclosure? Can we create local ventilation? If the effect of hazard can be reduced by creation of local ventilation, especially if the hazard is air pollution. Good housekeeping. Expose time reduced. I mentioned that, remember, when I was giving you guys an example of how to eliminate or how to reduce the severity of harm. Training is key. You must train the staffs to know what to do during emergency. Let me give you an example now. Once there is an emergency in a workplace, the next thing you must do is evacuation. People have been told that once the fire alarm rings, even as a lady, you don't go back to pick your belonging. You go straight to the muster point, where you wait for further instruction before going back to the workstation. It's through training, they know. Once there is an H2S release, the H2S alarm H2S alarm comes up in a rig. Please, workers must evacuate immediately. We must be trained to know, because soft H2S, hydrogen sulfide, you can smell it. It smells like rotten egg, and what it does is that it goes to the part of your brain to knock off your sensory organ. It disables it, so you don't smell it again after the first time you smell it. So it becomes normal. Before you know, you become dizzy, and the person becomes unconscious, and it can lead to death. So through training, staff should be meant to know the various forms of hazard they might be exposed to and how to curb them. PPEs, by wearing of PPEs, personal protective equipment, and welfare facilities. So we will stop here today.